Goku could feel his blood pumping in his veins with every movement he made, every shot he dodged. This girl, Diana, wasn't just keeping up with his Saiyan strength and speed, she even exceeded him in a few key moments. He had maybe gotten an odd shot on her when he tried one of Gohan's unconventional moves, a headbutt between one of her helicopter kicks, but she got one in on him almost right after with a vertical swinging kick. They were evenly matched. He couldn't even get the aerial advantage on her, since he still couldn't figure out how to fly. He could use his ki to float, sure, but that just made him a bigger target. "Holy crap, you're awesome!" Goku said, after using a burst of ki to gain a few more feet of distance from her. "Take this seriously!" she shouted at him, swinging her foot down like a blade on Goku, which he barely managed to dodge, her foot clinking into the ground. "Come on, you can't tell me you aren't having a good time," Goku said, jumping over another one of Diana's leg sweeps. The girl grunted, throwing a punch that missed the boy by only a literal hair as she flipped away. "I am only here because I have a responsibility to be," she said, not dropping her fighting stance. "I'm not hearing a no," Goku responded, wearing a half smile that made Diana flinch slightly. She could feel her heart in her ears with every punch he threw. She could feel the blood pushing through her veins. She felt alive. As much as she hated to admit it, the boy was right. This was a lot of fun. But there wasn't a chance in Hades that she was going to admit that out loud. Unfortunately, her body betrayed her. "You are smiling. I knew I wasn't the only one having fun," Goku said, almost immediately having to block a tackle from the girl immediately afterwards. The tackle hit dead center, and it drove him into the walls of the pyramid, crumbling around them. For probably the first time since he'd been training with his dad, he had been unable to stop his momentum. He was unable to stop himself from smashing into this thing. That was incredible. He only hoped Kal-El was having this much fun. Kal-El was having a very, very weird time. He didn't hate fighting. He just never found the idea of it as interesting as his family did. He more or less took Gine's approach to it, that fighting was a means to an end to helping people. So, being caught in a fight with this white-clad knight was one thing, but the fact that this guy hit harder than he thought anything on the planet outside of his family could, that was another. He didn't hit as hard as Clark necessarily, but he hit with more intention. He was quicker, deliberate. Every hit that he struck was painful. Even in training sessions with Bardock, he never felt this dizzy before. He took another knee to the face and spiraled backwards. "Please, we don't have to do this," Kal-El said shakily, the eyes of the knight staring at him. "You have a pure soul, boy. I can't even feel any malice radiating from you," the walking corpse said, lumbering towards Kal-El. "You shouldn't be trying to take from me. I'm going to make a world kind to people like you. One where you'll never have to fight again. That is my wish. With the power of the stone, I can use these people to gather the Dragon Balls. And with the power of the Dragon Balls, everyone can be happy. I can make my wish." Kal-El paused, getting to his feet. He didn't start attacking this creature, it attacked him, almost the second he showed up. Now it was talking about peace? That definitely didn't seem right. And what did it mean by using these people? Was it hurting them somehow? If this creature really did want to make the world a better place, the last thing he wanted to do was stop it, but it just didn't feel right to him. How? Cal asked. The knight stopped for a moment. "I will throw these people at every obstacle in my way till I have what I want. And then when the Dragon Balls are in my possession, I will wipe every cruel being off this planet before they can be made." The knight responded. "Before they can..." Cal paused. You're talking about killing people. People who haven't even done anything," Cal replied, tensing his fists. I can't let you do that," he gritted out. This whole fight, the journey to find the Dragon Balls, it had just gotten way more serious, and they were only on their first stop. "Then you will join them. A small price to pay for the benefit of mankind." The eyes on the gladiator narrowed. Cal stared at them. They almost seemed bestial. He got a strange sense from them, like he was looking at something else past this creature. Something larger. From what the creature said, the warrior who stood before him was something from the past. Probably a noble warrior like the Saiyans had been, whose corpse had been risen, unnaturally puppeted by whatever he was fighting. Noble warriors, like his adopted family were. At the thought of that, Cal felt himself getting angry. A warrior's death was something meant to be respected, and this thing just threw that out the window to puppet it in its sick pursuit of justice. He took a deep breath, but his eyes began to glow with a red-hot aura. "Fine, we'll see about that," Kal-El responded. The creature charged towards him, only to get knocked aside by an intense aura, something that Cal wasn't responsible for. One that belonged to a boy in a panther suit? It thrummed and vibrated with an aura that Kal-El had only ever seen on one other type of material, vibranium. But that would mean... Wait, T'Challa? Kal-El asked. The Moon Gladiator snapped its deceased body upwards once more, a loud crack coming with its motion. It pushed itself towards T'Challa, only to be knocked to the side by another figure, a smaller one, but one also wearing a panther suit. Kal-El looked towards it. Wait, Shuri? Kal-El knew that King T'Chaka had given his kids the same kind of suit that he had, the suit that was created solely to be worn by the Black Panther. He gave it to them to protect them, to enhance the power that the heart-shaped herb already gave to members of the royal lineage. This suit was designed to protect them from every single dangerous thing that could have happened on this mission. But as far as Kal-El knew, they were only for protection. They were just made to protect his kids, not to help them fight like this. Kal-El didn't even think that those two were fighters. But as he watched those two dodging and weaving around that white knight, he was definitely forced to reconsider the notion. T'Challa leaped beside him, helping him to his feet. "We did an analysis on your opponents. The person Goku is battling seems much less dangerous, so this one takes priority," T'Challa said to Kal-El's wide eyes. "But shouldn't you be..." Kal-El began to protest. "Our tutors have been teaching us to fight since before we could read," T'Challa responded. Kal-El could almost tell the boy was smiling even beneath his mask, without its X-ray vision. "You are our friend, Kal-El. We will not abandon you." "Then, okay, let's go," Kal-El responded, the two boys jumping back into the fray. "All right, pig," Granola said, picking up the small creature and pressing it against the wall. "You got about 5 seconds to explain yourself." "Is that how you treat people who just saved your life, Greenie?" the pig asked. "The name's Oolong, by the way. Not that you asked," he snorted out. Granola felt Tony's hand against his shoulder. He looked back at the boy, whose every expression was telling Granola in no uncertain terms to cool it. The cerulean dropped the pig to the ground. "Sorry about that, we just have some friends in the city," Tony tried to explain, even if he found the situation a bit odd. Sure, the nation of Kami was home to all kinds of beast people, but this guy was barely anthropomorphic. He was just a pig who could walk. "Well, if your pals are off in the city, I hope they're better at blending in than you idiots." Oolong crossed his arms. "Otherwise, Amit's gonna eat him alive." "Wait, Amit?" Bulma asked, scratching her head. "Isn't that some kind of god from Egyptian mythology?" "Got it in one, except it ain't mythology. She's as real as you and me, and about 1,000 times more nasty," Oolong shivered. "Seriously? You're expecting me to believe gods are real?" Bulma asked, sweat dropping down her face. "Gods are real," Granola said plainly, his mind filling with stories his Saiyan adopted family had told him about Beerus, the god of destruction, his visits to their homeworld, how he made the mighty Saiyan race look like dogs beneath the heels of wolves. Granola had never seen the guy himself, of course, but he knew that Bardock wasn't going to lie about a story that only made his people look worse. "Seriously?" Bulma tilted her head. "Well, we've seen weirder, Bulma," Tony argued. "Well, glad we're on the same page then," Oolong cut in among them. "Because those are her people out there, totally and completely devoted. And if you don't want to end up like them, you're gonna want to get out of here as quickly as possible. Taking me with you, of course." "What, too lazy to walk outside of town limits?" Tony asked. "You got the hooves, you might as well use them." "Oh, gee, great, why didn't I think of— Of course I tried that, you idiot," Oolong shouted. "I was planning on only stopping in on this dump for a few days to procure some supplies, and—" "You were gonna steal from them," Granola cut in almost immediately. If there was one thing Granola's key-enhanced sight could see from a mile away, it was bullshit. And this pig stuttering, fidgeting, sweating like a pig. It was more than enough for him to suspect something. "Alright then, you try passing up such an easy target." Oolong narrowed his eyes. "Amit just raises that little ball of hers and everybody bows down. Thankfully, she doesn't come out in person all too often. I figured all I had to do was pop out his old alligator head and everybody would just, bow down." "Little ball?" Bulma asked. Yeah, you know, that little yellow orb she has. A yellow orb? Bulma pondered. That sounded almost like a Dragonball. But they shouldn't be useful on their own. You needed all 7 of them to make a wish. Without the full set, you basically just had a shiny crystal ball. There had to be more than this. There had to be more to the situation. She eyed the pig. If there was one way to get information out of someone, it was to poke at them. Irritate them just a little bit. It was one of her specialties. And they didn't take too kindly to you targeting them, I imagine? Bulma pinched her brow. You moron. What were you even planning to... Bulma blinked, and a puff of smoke surrounded the group, specifically coming from the pig. And as the smoke began to dissipate, another Bulma appeared, crossing her arms impatiently. Oh, okay. Gotcha. Bulma swallowed hard. She had to admit it was nice seeing her beauty reflected outside of a mirror, but seeing it not follow your own movements was definitely unsettling. Creepy, to say the least. Tony leaned into Oolong's face and grabbed and pulled at it. Ow! Oolong's voice from Bulma's face said impatiently, with the pig's voice as opposed to Bulma's adding on to another layer of uncanny valley to her, already making the situation even more uncomfortable. Even your skin feels human. How are you? Right, stupid question. Tony scoffed. Kami as a country was full of so many incredible things, including aliens, one of which was literally only a few feet away from him. It wasn't like this was the line he should refuse to cross. There had to be some kind of scientific reason for all of this, he was sure, but still. You're an exact duplicate of Bulma. How did anybody see through this? Well, I thought they were just obsessed with the alligator lady, but she's doing something to them. Controlling them somehow. I think it has something to do with that little orb. It hits me too. I can't even walk out of this stupid place, Oolong explained. Wait, mind control? Tony asked, looking to the others as though to ask if they had felt any sort of strangeness in their heads. Thankfully, they all seemed normal. It doesn't work that way, Oolong huffed out. At least I don't think. If you have the misfortune of spending enough time in this trash heap, then eventually it starts pulling on you. And after it gets you under, you're not able to leave. Especially if you get too close to that psychopath. Oolong turned back to normal in a puff of smoke. Alright then, where is that psychopath? Granola asked, already starting to worry about the answer. Are you crazy? What, you want to get killed or... Where is she? Granola asked, a touch more aggressively, sending small waves of panic towards his traveling companions, and a very large one toward the pig that he just took a step in the direction of. Alright, Granola, calm down. It's not... Tony began. The temple! She lives in the temple, okay? The pig groaned out. Oh, damn it. Granola grunted out. Cal was there, the Wakandans were there, and worst of all, Goku was there. And if Goku knew that there was a god in that temple, there wasn't a force on the planet outside of Bardock who could get him to step down. Granola moved to walk away, only for Tony to put a hand on his shoulder. Did you forget that there's a whole town's worth of people out there who want our heads? He asked. I can handle them, Granola responded. You don't know that. Even if I doubt that there is a god out there is something controlling those people, and it might be able to make them tougher, Tony responded. And even if you can handle them, they can't handle you. Granola paused. Unfortunately, Stark had a point. If Granola did brute force his way past these people, he was probably going to hurt them, and hurt them bad enough that it would be pretty tough to recover from. He knew Goku, and especially Kal-El, wouldn't want him to. Fine, Granola grunted out. Good, Oolong replied. Talk some sense into the guy. Now, since you all haven't been affected by this wonky mind zone yet, if you wouldn't mind grabbing me so we could depart. I don't remember saying we were leaving yet, Tony replied, Oolong's eye twitching. Even if we don't know anyone's in danger, we can't just leave the town like this, at the mercy of some lunatic masquerading as a god. She is a god, you idiot, Oolong shouted. I don't care if she's Blue Marvel, Tony replied. She's going down. Tony? You do know that we aren't fighters, right? Bulma asked. Well, we don't need to be, Tony responded, looking at Granola. We already got a fighter. Now all we need is a good plan to use him. Use me? Granola asked. You got it, Greenie. That is, if you're down. Tony said, his arms crossed as a smile spread across his face, the plan already beginning to form in his mind. Fine, Granola muttered. He hated to admit it, but he respected the human spunk, not backing down from him for even a second. Great, Tony replied, kneeling down to go face to face with Oolong. Now, you said that God doesn't come out much. What would make Amit show her face? I guess you really are still my best shot at getting out of this dump, Oolong groaned. She's got a bit of an ego on her. She doesn't like being disrespected very much. Now that is something I can work with, Tony replied, bringing in his makeshift team for a huddle. It was time for the game of their lives. Bardock looked out over the frozen tundra as he touched down, tensing his muscles in irritation. Sometimes he didn't get his Saiyan anatomy. He could take a strike that could shatter a country, but cold weather was always a bitch no matter what planet he was on. And this place was next to Sub-Zero. Well, we're here, Muesli said beside him. Now what? She breathed out, her breath basically turning to icicles in the air. What, were you not listening to the king? How rude. Bardock grinned. Well, sorry if Ceruleans aren't as used to kissing royal ass, she responded dryly. Bardock scoffed, saying nothing in response. We're following a signal. Apparently it's the strongest in this location, Ine said, quietly sensing the restlessness in the air. This was the possibility of real change for the Saiyans, the first challenge that Bardock could have since he first set foot on this planet, so she knew why he was so excited. Loosely though, she was acting strange. She was acting more like a Saiyan than Gine. Exactly, Bardock said, lifting his gauntlet. Now, watch and learn. He lifted it to the sky. The gauntlet that Chaka had refined for him lifted to the air, its digital display flashing back at him. Huh, looks like we're going north. North? How north? Muesli narrowed her eyes. It just picks up the signal source, Gine replied. Points us in the right direction, kind of like a compass. It's the best that T'Chaka could do with how strong the power signal is. Yeah, I think the stone's power is literally pushing through us right now, Bardock replied, remembering how the chart showed the area of effect. If he stopped, he could almost feel the stone's power pushing against him, pushing against its aura, almost like it was challenging him. Alright then, Muesli replied, floating in the air. Let's not keep Hydra waiting. She blasted forwards. She doesn't even have the gauntlet, Gine replied, dumbfounded. Well, you definitely have to admire her enthusiasm, Bardock replied, his aura lighting up as he blasted off after her. Sure, Gine replied, lighting up her own aura and blasting off after the two of them. She knew this was an important task for the world, but she couldn't help but wince at how eager they were about the whole thing. Like they were chasing something other than this space stone they were supposed to be looking for. Snapping out of her thoughts, she forced herself to a dead stop in midair, seeing that the two before her had done the same. What's wrong? Gine asked. The signal's dead, but that doesn't make any damn sense, Bardock replied. Something that big doesn't just disappear. Maybe they're hiding it from us, Muesli replied. If we could pick them up, maybe they could pick us up. Wakanda can't be the only place to have that kind of technology, right? Well, maybe, Gine replied. But then why would they let us get this close if they knew we were coming? Who cares? Bardock sneered. We know they're here. If they want to hide, we'll just draw them out. Bardock began charging a riot javelin in his hand. Muesli began charging a point shot in hers. Gine just stared at them. The situation still didn't sit right with her. Sure, Hydra hadn't been a problem on Earth in quite some time, but they had been defeated last time. Surely such a loss would make them more cautious next time, not less. Hey, squids! Bardock roared out, loud enough to make the ice glaciers around them tremble. You got about 5 seconds to get out here before there's no here left. 4, 3, 2... Gine spotted something. A small dot on the horizon beneath them. Something that almost seemed humanoid. It began raising its arms in the air, almost like it was charging a ki attack? Bardock. 1. Riot Javelin! He launched a blast downward, big enough to easily evaporate half the frozen island beneath their feet. Muesli following up with enough strength to break the other half of the island. Then, just as quickly as they appeared, they were gone. The ki blast shrunk away before the group's eyes, until it was just a small flash on the horizon that disappeared. Huh. Well, look who finally... Bardock was cut off by a blitzing attack, a punch to the gut that forced the spit from his lips, and forced him to float back to gain some distance. He almost felt himself gagging. It had been a while since he'd been hit that hard. He must have gotten rusty. Muesli unleashed a flurry of shots on the creature, all of them hitting their marks, but none of them at her maximum power. She didn't have nearly enough time to charge up. But when the smoke cleared, the exterior of the creature was just scuffed, cracked but nothing serious. Greetings, extraterrestrials. I am designated Red Ribbon Unit, Android 1, and your time of peace is at its end. You will now be fighting for your lives, the creature said. Bardock wiped its mouth. This creature just threw a lot of information at him. That this planet was advanced enough for battle droids? That they had known that he was somehow present on the planet, which so far only T'Chaka and his people had figured out? That there were some fuckers out there calling themselves the Red Ribbon Army when he had expected to be facing off against Hydra? He'd care about those later. Pleasure to meet you. I'll make sure to inscribe that name on your tombstone, Bardock responded. Cut off one head, 2 more shall take its place. The machine replied automatically, only to be smacked into the ground, cratering the floor beneath it. Well, I hope you're right, Muesli replied. I wouldn't want this to get boring. You want to what? Nolan asked, narrowing his eyes at the 2 kids before him. We want to take a planet, Vegeta responded, still holding himself up high, not giving Nolan an ounce of space to push back against him. The Viltrumite might have not taken well to dissidents, but he didn't take well to cowards either. You want to take the Skrull homeworld, Nolan responded. The Frieza Force has never even gotten the chance. Not yet, anyway. He growled, of course being correct. The borders between the Frieza Force and the Kree and Skrull empires had shifted over the years, but they had more or less stayed where they were on a cosmic level, their respective empires' technology or power level being far too much for the Frieza Force to handle by itself, especially not with the Emperor, and Frieza himself could only be in one place at one time. Exactly, because they're all going about it the wrong way, Anissa added, making Nolan raise a solitary eyebrow. The Frieza Force aside from the Viltrumite Empire is unexperienced and sloppy, she responded, Nolan nodding. Vegeta smirked at yet another verbal victory. Frieza throws your people at the front lines of a border. Power is useless if used so unsparingly, Vegeta continued. Watch your tone, Prince. Get a little too big for your britches and you'll end up like the rest of your race, Nolan responded, in a half-amused tone. Vegeta forced his ki to maintain its current level. He would be able to put up a fight against Nolan now, but he still wasn't as strong as he was. This was the man who was Frieza's second in command after all. He didn't pick those blindly. But I can see your point, Nolan conceded. So, what would you recommend? A small group. Myself, the Viltrumite, Nappa, Vegeta began, making sure to show extra disdain when referring to Anissa. He couldn't exactly allow Nolan to know that he had an ally outside of Nappa, could he? And Kui, Nolan cut in, Vegeta clenching his fist. Of course, the whole unit, Vegeta responded. Good, Nolan responded back, staring between Vegeta and Anissa. The prince's hatred for Viltrumites was well known and barely hidden. It was one of the things that made him so useful to Nolan. The anger he felt every time Nolan gave him an order spiked his power before he even went on a mission. It made him more effective, so the fact that he was presenting this little plan with the Viltrumite, it was probably for the best the Saiyans were outnumbered on this mission if he didn't want to lose another Viltrumite out there. Viltrumites were already having enough trouble maintaining their population. Continue. Gladly, Anissa responded. Myself and the Saiyan will lead our unit behind enemy lines. The border the Skrulls defend is stretched thin with the weight of their expansive empire. As long as we go in quietly, they won't see us as worth the trouble. Then we strike their homeworld with the full weight of our strength, Vegeta continued. Since they're spread across light years, by the time we arrive, their center of living will be disrupted, disorganized. The shock will spread throughout their empire, making it easier to decimate them in border clashes. The Frieza Force will practically double in territory overnight if you succeed, Nolan continued. Though if you fail, they'll double their border reinforcements and likely attempt an invasion of our space, a severe problem with their cowardly shape-shifting abilities. Nolan stepped forward, towering over the 2 of them. Vegeta floated upwards, meeting Nolan's eyeline. Then I suppose the mighty Viltrumite Empire will just have to stand firm, won't it? Vegeta asked. Nolan grabbed the boy's arm, pulling him closer as he increased the strength of his grip. Not enough to hurt the boy, but more than enough to make him uncomfortable. What? Are the great Viltrumites afraid of another species? I thought that was beneath Nolan the Conqueror. Huh. You're getting bolder by the day. Nolan pushed the boy back. Good. If you're confident enough to talk like that, then you should be confident on the field of battle. So keep it that way. We'll see if it's warranted if you get back. Vegeta smirked, walking away from the warrior, Anissa moving to follow him before Nolan grabbed her by the arm. How strong has the boy gotten? He asked. Oh, the prince? Strong enough, she responded. Still below me, of course, she added quickly, Nolan nodding and setting her off. Good, she thought as she followed behind Vegeta. The last thing she needed was to be caught in a lie. Shockwaves continued pushing against Goku and Diana's fists, both of them having accumulated scratches and bruises all over their bodies, to the point that it was kind of hard for them to keep going. But go on they did. Goku's clothing was torn to ribbons, and what little armor Diana did have was dented beyond recognition. And both of them were loving every second of it. "You are awesome," Goku shouted, just before Diana kneed him in the gut, making him step back for a moment. "Yeah, you're not so bad yourself." She smiled for a second, before realizing what she was doing. She shook herself off. "But you're still my enemy." "Oh, yeah, right. Why again?" Goku asked, Diana furrowing her brow. "Do you really think feigning ignorance is going to be enough to stop this battle?" Diana asked. "What? I don't want to stop fighting," Goku responded. "Are you tired or something?" he asked innocently, making Diana squint in response. "Are you truly not trying to obtain the stone for Hydra?" Diana asked. "I'm just trying to find the Dragon Ball. Is that the stone you're talking about?" Goku asked, Diana putting her fist to her side. "No, I don't believe so," Diana stuttered. "And Hydra, I think my parents are hunting those guys down, but I don't have anything to do with that," Goku responded innocently. So innocent, in fact, that it forced a single fact into Diana's skull. She'd made a mistake, and a fairly bad one. Diana began, only for the ground beside her to erupt. Another boy cratered beside her. "Oh, hey, Kal." Goku grinned, helping his brother to his feet. Kal wiped a touch of blood from his cheek. "You having trouble?" "A little," Kal joked, looking over to the two panthers holding off his foe. "Are you having trouble?" Kal asked, looking over at Diana, trying to figure out if he was going to have to fight the girl or not. "I don't think we're fighting anymore," Goku said, a little disappointment seeping into his voice. "Well, that's nice," Kal responded. "I don't think mine is that nice." He got ready to charge back into the fight, Goku beside him taking up a fighting stance, only for something to stop the pair in their tracks. A sound playing from the sky. It looked like somebody holding up a speaker? "Is that Granola?" Kal asked. "Looks like it. What do you think he's doing?" Goku asked back. "Who is that?" Diana asked. "Oh, that's our brother," Goku responded, plainly. "Your brother can fly?" Diana asked. "Yeah, most of our family can," Goku responded casually. "Attention, Amit, the person down there calling herself a god. You don't know me, but my name is Anthony Edward Stark. I'm one of the smartest people on the planet, not to toot my own horn. Next to me is Bulma Briefs. Probably a little below my level if we're being honest. Ow." Tony paused for a moment, likely due to being elbowed by the girl in question. "The person holding this makeshift stereo is named Granola, and he assures me that he and his family, a couple of whom you probably already met, are some of the strongest people on Earth. Not to mention there's a couple of other little geniuses kicking around this little town of yours." "Seriously, what's he doing?" Kal continued, before noticing that the sound of fighting had ceased. T'Challa and Shuri had stopped fighting the puppeted corpse. The corpse itself, actually, had stopped doing much of anything at all, instead just staring at Granola in the sky. Now, you might be asking yourself, just what is this handsome devil doing? And the answer is simple. We've been told what you're doing to the people in this town. Or rather, what you're using that rock of yours to do to the people in this town. Probably pretty natural for you. I mean, you do call yourself a god after all," Tony said, sarcasm layered in his voice about as deep as it would go. Kal heard the dead body growling, almost like an animal about to pounce. In the low rumble of the growl, he heard two words repeated over and over. "You dare." "Hey, is he talking about that rock thing you were looking for?" Goku turned to Diana, who too was caught up in the spectacle. Yes, I think so," Diana said, narrowing her eyes. The boy she fought was a good warrior, but clearly he didn't hang around with good strategists. She couldn't imagine any of her mentors doing something so pointless. "Alright, cool. After we beat this Amit person, you can probably have it," Goku responded. "You want to fight a god?" Diana asked. "Tony just said that the people in this town are in trouble." Diana heard a voice from beside her, T'Challa's voice. Goku looked to the scene of where they had just been fighting. The knight was still there, standing as still as a statue and not budging an inch. "And if Granola's carrying the message, then I think it's probably true," Kal responded. He reasoned on some level that this message was just as much to them as it was to Amit, a kind of rallying cry, to let them know to get ready for something bigger. "We can't exactly leave these people in the hands of that lunatic." Shuri followed up. Diana looked at the group. They were resolute in their voices. None of them wavered for even a second. And their faces, the ones she could see at least, were smiling. They didn't seem scared. They weren't hesitating, they were just getting ready. getting ready to do something that they all felt they had to do. This wasn't what Diana was told that man's world was like. So, if you really want to think you're a god, then how about you come out to play with the mortals? Show your disciples that your talk of justice isn't a bunch of hot air. Unless god and coward are synonyms now. Tony's voice echoed over the city for a distinct moment. And then it was quiet. Not a single sound pushed across it. No footsteps, no voices, nothing. Over 1,000 people holding their breath. Then, the reanimated corpse collapsed. The energy, the life force within it rising into the temple. And, not a moment further, another body burst through the ceiling. A much, much larger one. One with a crocodile head for its own. Dressed in garb that reminded Clark of what he read about ancient Egypt. It wasn't the only thing. This creature really was the spitting image of one of the Egyptian gods. There was just one thing that seemed to set it apart. Something shining in the center of its head. A yellow gem. The Mind Stone, Diana whispered to herself, barely loud enough for others to hear. Nobody was very concerned with it, though. There was something far more important in the forefront of everyone's minds. It really is a god. Clark swallowed hard. Goku, on the other hand, his teeth shone with a smile growing from ear to ear. You guys ready? Goku asked, looking to his friends one by one, getting nods from everyone, T'Challa, Shuri, Kal-El, and then he finally looked at Diana, every part of his expression practically screaming, "Are you in?" She wasn't here for a fight this big, but she was here for the stone. She needed to get it, to protect it before this Hydra organization she had heard about could. It was the whole reason she snuck away. Not to mention, if these people were right, if those living in the city truly were being tortured by the creature above them, then, god or not, there was no chance that she was going to back down. Amazons were the guardians of mankind. It was time for Diana to live up to that title. Did you finish mapping out the area yet? Raditz asked, looking over Peter's shoulder. I'd finish it quicker if you didn't keep nagging me. Peter smiled, at a sentence he knew would irritate the spiky-haired Saiyan. Relax, dude. I'm just picking up signal traffic from other ships. We should be able to pick up whatever's out there. Get some context clues as to where we washed up. Just as soon as this thing's done decrypting the language, Peter patted on the universal translator, bolted into the ship's control center. Great. We get that up and running, at least we'll know what washed up corner of the galaxy you sent us to. Raditz scoffed. Hey, at least half the blame lies with Greenie, Peter replied. Would you have preferred being scattered across space by the Kree? I can keep that in mind for next time. Gamora narrowed her eyes at the two. These two idiots had the gall to call themselves the Guardians of the Galaxy when they could barely keep themselves alive. Sure, they might have saved her life when it came to the Kree, without asking anything in return, especially unusual in the parts of the galaxy she hung around, but she would still sooner strangle herself than let these two idiots handle the Power Stone by themselves. It was gonna be a bit difficult for her when she inevitably had to take it, but there was no use thinking about that now. The second they got to a safe spot in whatever shithole, she watched the transmissions being recorded on the screen, watched the words being transcribed into language. I recognize this, Gamora said, the two boys' eyes snapping towards her. I know where we are. See, Raditz, everything's gonna be fine. You worry too much, Peter elbowed the Saiyan. He worries a good amount, Quill, Gamora replied. We're worse off than before. Oh, come on, how bad? This is Skrull territory, Gamora responded. Peter and Raditz looked at each other. Raditz looked more confused than anything, but Peter just started laughing to himself. Oh, well, fuck. Hey everybody, thanks for checking out my little corner of the multiverse once again. I really appreciate it as always. It's been a while since I stepped into the Dragonball portion of the timeline, and I really missed it. Anyway, next week I plan on continuing the My Hero portion, so I really hope to see y'all then. If you like this video, be sure to let me know, and if you want to see more of this universe in action, make sure to press subscribe so you don't miss the next installment. Until next time, I'm your captain, and it's been a pleasure to take you on another tour of the strongest Earth in the multiverse. I'll see you next time.